Now, live from the Patriot Detroit Radio Complex, this is the John McCulloch Show.
The Uranium One deal, the president saying with regard to Russia, that's the real story in all of this. What would you say to those critics?
I would say it's the same baloney they've been peddling for years, and there's been no credible evidence by anyone. In fact, it's been debunked repeatedly and will continue to be debunked. But here's what they're doing, and really, I have to give them credit. You know, Trump and his allies are really experts at distraction and diversion. So the closer the investigation about real Russian ties between Trump associates and real Russians, as we heard Jeff Sessions finally admit to in his testimony the other day, the more they want to just throw mud on the wall, and I'm their favorite target, me and, President Obama. We're the ones that they always like to put into the crosshairs.
Now, here's John.
And welcome into the Wednesday edition of the McCulloch Show here on FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot. Glad you could join us for the fastest hour on local Detroit talk radio, where your host continues to serve his life sentence in reality. Be aware, here all lives matter. There is no political correctness. There are no safe zones for the snowflakes, and you will be triggered if you are triggerable. A couple of things from last night. I have a question on the text here. Can you get the podcast of last night's show? Yeah, if you wait, I believe it's a 2-day thing. It'll be up tomorrow. And so if you missed last night's show and you wanted to get it, it'll be up there tomorrow, and you can pick up the entire show. Also, the liberal press is doing its job trying to gin up support for the 2018 campaign by putting out more fake news. The fake news this time is that Steve Bannon may be considering a run for the presidency, which is entirely false, and they know it. He's repeatedly said there's no way, and there is no way. He knows from experience that there's no way he could run. Outsiders do stand a chance of getting in, of course. Donald Trump has proved that, but you got to be a household name at the same time. You got to have the name recognition. And while he definitely has name recognition amongst his opponents, let's say, he does not have name recognition over the kitchen table. So, but anyway, they're doing their job, and more power to them. Also, Hillary Clinton continues her rant on the fact that there's nothing to any of this investigation into the Russia thing. She still is hoping somehow that it's going to be Donald Trump that'll be found to be the one to be colluding with the Russians as opposed to her. But we'll find out later tonight that that is not the case. And the whole thing is going to turn around on the Democrats. And it's not going to make some people happy. There's going to be a lot of very long faces in Washington, D.C. when this thing comes to an end. Now, I don't believe that Hillary Clinton's going to go to jail. I don't think that'll happen. But some people will. And who it is, I don't know. I don't pretend to know. I'm not an insider. But there are people who do know. And it's we'll be talking about it again this week, I have a feeling. I have a feeling we'll be talking about it tomorrow. But I do want to talk to you about something that's a little off the beaten path. It is a local issue, but it's off the beaten path. We've been spending a lot of time on national stuff. And it's a very simple question with a very complicated answer, by the way. Do you know what your middle school kid or high school kid or middle school grandkid or high school kid, grandkid, or even grade school for that matter, are being taught in school vis-a-vis sex education? Do you know? Have you seen the textbooks? Have you seen the workbooks? I have a story here out of Oklahoma, and I'm going to share it with you. And then I'm not going to share the whole thing with you. I can't share the whole thing with you, frankly. But remembering it's a family show. Now, there are some graphic language in here. I'll warn you in advance on that. But it's an interesting story, and we're going to talk about its application here and why it's happening in Oklahoma. It was discovered by a school superintendent who he'd been there for years and years and years in this school district, the Oklahoma School District, and went away for, I guess, a year, and then came back and was immediately reinstated as superintendent. And what happened was that a parent of a middle schooler discovered that their 12-year-old daughter was sitting through a co-ed sex education class. That means, for those of you who don't know, boys and girls in the same class. They can't separate them anymore because of federal laws on transgender education. So they have to teach it co-ed. Their 12-year-old was sitting through this sex education class that was teaching middle school students about masturbating, both single masturbation and mutual, oral and anal sex, and the techniques of a man performing oral sex on a woman. 12 years old. And since this couple's 12-year-old was still pretty interested in working coloring books, I guess she's a very good colorer, they were somewhat shocked by this. And the way they discovered it was a workbook. Now, I could hold this up to the camera and show it to you folks who are watching here on Facebook Live, which, by the way, you can do. Just go to facebook.com/thepatriotdetroit and you'll see the show. But I'm not going to do that because you don't know who's watching it. And I don't want to get in trouble with Facebook because they're always trying to pop conservative people off the air anyway. But it's pretty shocking. But here's the kicker. This girl was supposed to be bringing the workbook home and discussing these classes with her parents. The problem was she was too embarrassed to do that. Come to find out, 99.9% of the kids in the class were too embarrassed to bring this workbook home. And for that reason, anyway, the class was being taught, and now the superintendent has canceled the class, canceled the whole course. He's come under fire from the federal government, and they've told him that he's going to have to teach it next year, or that it's going to have to be taught at J Middle School in Oklahoma. Now, here's my question. It's about a threefold question, maybe four. Number one, do you know what your kids are being taught, or your grandkids, or your nephews or nieces or whatever, or your neighbors for that matter? Do you know for sure? Number two, do you know who's doing the teaching? Number three, are you getting all of the take-home material or homework or workbooks and so forth that you're supposed to get? Number four, what in the heck is Washington doing telling people in Jay, Oklahoma what's best to teach as far as sex education to a 12-year-old girl? And number five question, do you think that this should go on, or do you think it should go to local control? I am a firm believer in local control. That's no surprise to anybody. And I think this is absolutely absurd. It's ridiculous. It's not letting kids be kids. And I know that there are people in the audience who are going to say, what do you want to do? Find out about it in the back alley and all that. Yeah, I hear that crap all the time. Don't bother calling. with that. The fact is that Washington, D.C., and the bureaucrats in the Department of Education and the Department of HEW, or whatever they call it now, Health and Human Services, have no business telling us here in Ferndale or Detroit or Rochester Hills or anyplace else what to teach, especially when it comes to sex education. What goes over in New York in public school number 139 does not go over in Oklahoma Middle School. I'm sorry, there are differences, but we're glad there are. But I want your answers to these questions. Now, I asked Tiffany. She has a boy in middle school. What he's being taught as far as sex education, and she honestly answered, I don't know. So do you know? And should you know? Do you want local control over it, or are you content to let the federal government continue to dictate what is taught in our local schools? I know it's a little bit off the beaten path, but I want to hear from you. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. I'm not going to spend the whole program on it, but I definitely want to talk about it. I want to see where you come down on this. I want to see if you were aware of it. I want to see if you were aware that the amount of dictating that comes out of Washington, D.C. to your local school as far as what's to be taught, not just in sex education, but in history and other things that they're butchering. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. And if you would like to use the feature on your smartphone that allows you to text me, you can do that too. That is very easy to do. You go to your phone's app store and search WDTK. Download the app when it pops up and open it up. And then text or scroll down to where it says Text John McCulloch. That comes into this screen right here, and I see them in real time. It's very fast. It's almost instantaneous. And I read every single one I get. I don't share them all. I can't, because I can't, but I do read every single one I get. But I want to hear from you on this, and I know it's a tough subject to discuss. I realize that. But it's an important subject to discuss, especially if you don't know what's going on in your school. We used to know. We used to be welcome in school as parents. I don't know if that's changed. But I can tell you some of the stuff they're teaching in the schools today would literally blow you away. It's just not. The history's all messed up. There are certain things that are omitted, certain things that are emphasized. And this sex education thing, I don't know what genius in Washington, D.C. decided that a 12-year-old girl should be taught about oral and anal sex. But that's what's happening by order of the federal government. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. Here's Renata in St. Clair Shores on the Patriot. Hi, Renata.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
I had my son in the middle school 10 years ago, and already back then this was going on, and he was part of the South Lake schools. I was very interested in the sex education, what's going on in the schools. And the third and fourth grade, I was able to opt out my son because they were taught some of the things that you mentioned earlier. But in the fifth grade, I was not able to do that anymore. And he was forced, and I was forced to have my son in a class learning all this information and the graphics associated with it. I fought the school with everything that I've had, but not just the teachers, but the parents literally, when I went to the meeting, I thought it was 80% of the parents were against me, criticizing me, putting me down, calling me all kinds of names, and all the women in that meeting were against me. I was petrified of what was going on then. That was 10 years ago.
Renata, I thank you for sharing that with us, and you bring up a point that I was going to bring up and I forgot it. I should have written it down. The women seem to be the biggest proponents of this kind of stuff. And I don't know whether it's because they're afraid to have those talks with their kids, or they want somebody else to initiate it, or I don't know why it is, but the women seem to be, and this is not misogynistic or sexist or anything else. It's just, it's a fact. And I'm wondering why that is. Renata, thank you for sharing that with us, and I appreciate your call very, very much. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. This is the John McCulloch Show, and the subject of do you know what your kid's being taught in school vis-a-vis sex education or not, or do you want to know? Maybe this is something that you'd rather just leave to Washington or leave to the local school. Maybe maybe people like me shouldn't be concerned about this and should keep our big noses out of it. Let me know. 800-923-9385 here on the McCulloch Show on FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot. If you have a hearing problem, you probably do know about it, but I can tell you this, if you don't know about it, the people around you do. And if you're saying what all the time, or repeat that please, or excuse me, or you're missing half of a conversation, or you're answering questions that nobody asked you, or you're off subject, or your TV's up so loud that the neighbors bang on the wall, you probably have a hearing problem. And the one thing that I want you to know is that there's a place you can go that is not going to hammer you, is not going to high pressure you, and you're going to feel like family, and that's Cruz Hearing. That's where I went. I didn't want to go, and Felix Cruz surprised me greatly when I went in there, and he says, John, I know you don't want to be here. And he was, very honest. And after we did the hearing exam and everything else, he says, you know what? He says, I think you should go home for a couple of days and think about this before we even put a pair on you to try it out. He said, I don't think you're ready. I said, well, I am. He said, all right, if you say so. And so anyway, the rest is history, and here I am, and I can hear, and people around me are a lot happier about it. But you can share in that experience. You're not going to be high-pressured. You're just going to get the information you need to make a decision no matter where you buy. I strongly recommend Cruz Hearing because I don't like to be pressured. I really don't. Let me give you the number to call. There's 2 locations to serve you, one down in Taylor. That's where Joshua Cruz is. That's Felix's son. Felix is in Farmington Hills. And the number for both is 877-456-2789. Take that big step. Make that call. I know it's hard to do, but do it. 877-456-2789. That's 877-456-CRUISE. And be sure and let them know that you heard about it from John McCulloch.
Now, on-time traffic and weather on the Patriot.
You'll find Sheldon Road north and southbound between Fair Oaks Drive and Salts Road in Canton. It is closed due to a broken water main, expected to remain closed until 10 p.m. tonight. You'll find 14 Mile Road east and westbound between Drake Road and Farmington Road is closed due to a broken water main. You should take another Mile Road instead. Watch out for an accident on 275 southbound before M14. Traffic is stop and go from 696 in this area. Plan on about a 15-minute delay here. You'll find road construction closing down the left lane of 696 eastbound between Woodward and 75. Traffic is stop and go from the Lodge. You'll find 94 westbound at Merriman Road. There is an accident blocking the right shoulder there. And you'll find an accident blocking the right shoulder of Southfield Freeway southbound after Ford Road, backing things up a little ways. Your weather. Today, scattered showers with a high of 50 degrees. Tonight, chance of showers with the low of 38. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with the high of 55. Right now, it is partly cloudy and 50 degrees. I'm Leanna Patriot, FM 101.5 and AM 1400.
Stay on the right track to 9 Mile and Mac. Selecting your next vehicle is not a game at Royal Bryan Ford. Macomb County's oldest Ford dealer has spectacular savings on Ford's winning vehicle lineup. We are home of the free service loaner, free first oil change, and free first tank of gas. Amy O'Brien here. Please come see what 73 years of experience can do for you.
Royal Bryan has the best deal around.
The John McCulloch Show is brought to you in part by Online Trading Academy.
FM 101.5, AM 1400, The Patriot. Here's John in Livonia on The Patriot. Hi, John. Go ahead.
Hey, John. First-time caller.
Welcome.
I wanted to make a comment about Cruz hearing. I don't know why I don't call. I have no idea. I know I'm losing my hearing. I work with my brother who's half deaf and two other guys who are totally deaf. None of us, we're just at the workshop. We're just yelling on top of it. I don't understand what it is about us that we can't call.
Well, I can't call for you.
Anyway, but the reason I called is I grew up pretty sheltered. My mom and dad were divorced when I was young. I grew up with my grandparents, so there wasn't a lot of talk of sex. But my mother remarried, my stepfather, and they moved out to a farm. So now we're out in a farming community. Every 4-year-old understands sex better than most teenagers because the cows do it, and you got breeding programs, and we were raising and breeding thoroughbreds. So one guy's got the stallion, the other guy's got the mare, and they just every 4-year-old understands so clearly. The fact is, nobody's on farms. You can't connect the dots when you don't know where the dots are. We're not designed to live so far out of touch with nature and wildlife, and that's why farmers, they understand so much that none of us understand. I would think that you could test out. If you go to 4-H, you could test out a sex ed. My point is, if you already know, I
got what you're saying, and it's a very interesting viewpoint. One I had not thought of, to be frank, John, and I'm really glad you shared it. And don't be a stranger, and get over to Cruz Hearing and go there and find out if what I'm saying or that what I'm saying is absolutely true, and then call me back and tell me about it. Take your brother with you and your other coworkers. 800, I do appreciate the call. That living on a farm, being next to nature, makes sex education practically unnecessary, as I think what he said. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. Next up, Tom in Detroit on the Patriot. Hi, Tom.
Hi. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. On the federal government, there's in 1997 decided case. I don't know if you've heard of Sheriff Richard Mack. He sued the federal government over part of the Brady bill was making sheriffs do background checks, and he said he was a state officer and the federal government didn't have any jurisdiction. Well, he won. The case is Mack, M-A-C-K/Prinz, P-R-I-N-T-Z versus USA. And what the court said basically was that the federal government could not make the states enforce their programs by putting a burden on the officers. They actually told sheriffs that they would be thrown in jail and pay fines if they didn't do the background checks. There were over 3,000 sheriffs that just went along, and only 7 sheriffs in the whole country got in on the lawsuit. But they won, and excuse me?
I'm listening.
Okay, well, they won, and the court said basically, well, I already said what the court said.
Yeah.
It had already been settled that the states couldn't be forced by the federal government to do the bidding of the federal government, that the two governments are sovereign and separate, according to the 10th Amendment.
Well, that may be the case in the case of law enforcement, but I don't know that it would be the case in the case of schools. It would be something definitely that we would want to check out. Thanks for pointing it out. I wrote the information down, Tom, and I do appreciate the call. I'll see if there's any comparisons between the two, because I don't know that there would be. Let's see. Ryan, Ypsilanti, you're up next on the Patriot. Go ahead.
Peace and blessings upon you, John. So I remember being in sex ed class when I was in 5th grade, and we definitely did not go into as much detail as this Oklahoma school did. And I think you've actually found a liberal who will agree with you, especially for a 12-year-old, that the level where they're describing fun acts you can do on each other, I would agree that that's inappropriate. I think maybe basic stuff at the end of elementary school could be appropriate, and maybe slightly more detailed stuff in high school, but at 12 years old, come on.
Thanks for your call, Ryan, and thanks for understanding that all conservative views are not insane.
Have a good one.
Okay, you do the same. That's our liberal caller from Ypsilanti. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. We'll stay on this for another few minutes. There seem to be some people who are interested in voicing their opinions on it. If you're wondering what we're talking about a case out of Oklahoma that brings up questions here. Case out of Oklahoma was in Jay, Oklahoma. The parents of a 12-year-old girl found out that she's being taught things like mutual masturbation, oral and anal sex, and etc. in her sex education class, and they raised Cain about it. Do you know what's being taught in your school, in your middle school, your grandkids' middle school, or high school, or grade school for that matter? And should you? Or do you care? And should Washington be doing the dictating in this case? So we'll take your calls. I want to let you know that Online Trading Academy, I want to tell you, if you qualify and can get in there to be taught by these professionals from all over the country, I think it would be a great thing. The Online Trading Academy is not like a hotel deal where you go to a hotel or a motel and you go into a room and a couple of guys come in and lecture you and then they leave. You never see them again. Try to sell you a bunch of tapes and things. And this is a campus, and they have campuses in 40 areas all around the world, in Dallas and Singapore and here in Detroit. And they teach, they don't. They have professional traders who make their living trading and who contract with Online Trading Academy to come in and spend weeks and weeks teaching you how they make money in the stock market, whether it goes up or down. It's a great idea. Find somebody who's got money and is making money, find out how they did it, and then go do what they did. That's what this is all about. I think you should do as I did and attend a free 3-hour power trading seminar, workshop on investment and trading to find out from these professionals just how they do it, whether the market goes up or down. I can't think of time better spent. Give them a call, 844-250-8723. That's 844-250-8723, or simply go to patriotdetroit.com, go to the John McCulloch page, and you'll see the number right there. 844-250-8723. Be sure and let them know John McCulloch sent you.
Now, on-time traffic, news, and weather on the Patriot.
You'll find that earlier accident on 275 southbound before M14 has cleared, but traffic is still recovering. It is stop and go from 696 in this area. You'll find road construction closing down the left lane of 696 eastbound between Woodward and 75. Traffic is stop and go from the Lodge in this area. Plan about a 20-minute delay. You'll find on 14 Mile Road east and westbound between Drake Road and Farmington Road it is closed due to a broken water main. You should take another Mile Road instead. You'll find an accident blocking the right shoulder of 94 westbound and Merriman Road, causing delays there as well. An accident blocks the right shoulder of Southfield Freeway southbound after Ford Road, causing some delays there. You'll find slow traffic on Southfield Freeway southbound between 7 Mile and Plymouth. And you'll find some slow traffic on 94 eastbound between Harper Avenue and Metropolitan Parkway. Your weather. Today, scattered showers with a high of 50 degrees. Tonight, chance of showers with a low of 38. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with a high of 55. Right now it is partly cloudy and 50 degrees. From the townhall.com newsroom, the world's largest travel book publisher, Lonely Planet, is set to rank Detroit the second best city in the world to visit in 2018. The announcement yesterday follows a bid by Detroit to become the second headquarters of Amazon.com. The top spot on Lonely Planet's list for best places to visit is Seville, Spain. Authorities say a Jeep burst into flames in the driveway of a struggling family battling cancer. The family woke to the blaring of a car alarm early yesterday morning and found the family's Jeep engulfed in flames. Someone shot at the family's front window with a pellet gun on Sunday night, and after the fire, the family thinks they are being targeted. A GoFundMe page has been set up to cover the parents' medical expenses, and now the family must replace their vehicle. Police are investigating the incident as an arson. Traffic and weather updates 4 times an hour and news always online at patriotdetroit.com. I'm Leanna Ray for the Patriot, FM 101.5 and AM 1400.
Well, I know that Dr. James Gregg is not listening to the program tonight because tonight he's over in Garden City doing a doctor's report. The doctor's report is a meeting that he has at 6 o'clock on Wednesday in Garden City and Monday in Troy, where he explains chiropractic. If you heard any of the show last night, you heard some really good explanations, and I got some surprising information that I wasn't aware of, as did some listeners who called in. But the doctor's report is a great idea that he's been doing it for years, and he considers it an extremely important part of his practice. And what he does is he explains chiropractic to people who come to the meeting, and then he asks for questions. And you can ask any kind of questions you want. You can ask questions you might consider to be embarrassing questions to him about rumors you've heard or reasons you haven't come or considered chiropractic before. And he wants to hear them, and he'll answer them. Look, it's your pain. You know if you're in pain, you need to get the information. And if you're not considering chiropractic as a method to get out of your pain, maybe this will get you the information you need to try it. And that's the only reason he does it. Of course, there's no obligation. You can bring family members for support if you want to, or neighbors. It doesn't matter. Just give them a call. Let them know you're coming. That way they know how much tea to make. 734-525-8422 for either location, Garden City or Troy. You got it down. It's Monday in Troy and Wednesday in Garden City. 734-525-8422. 734-525-8422, and be sure and let them know about the fact that you heard it on the John McCulloch Show.
You know secondhand smoke is a health risk. When you see someone smoking or you smell smoke, you avoid it. Did you know the second leading cause of lung cancer cannot be seen, smelled, or tasted? It's radon gas. It may cause over 600 new lung cancers in Michigan this year. And the only way to know you're safe from radon is to have your home tested. 1 in 8 Michigan homes test positive for dangerous levels of radon gas. Call 1-800-RADON-GAS to learn more about radon and having your home tested. This message sponsored by the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and the Michigan Association of Broadcasters.
The John McCulloch Show is sponsored in part by AzerTech Public Adjusters.
FM 101.5, AM 1400, The Patriot. We're talking about sex education in your schools. Do you know what your kids are being taught or what your grandkids are being taught? These people in Jay, Oklahoma got a big surprise when they finally got a look at the workbook that their 12-year-old girl was having to use, and they were literally sick about it. I'm not going to go into everything that was in it again, but do you know? Do you know what the federal government is requiring being taught in your schools where your kids are going, whether it's grade school, middle school, or high school? And where did these geniuses in Washington come up with this idea that the same thing that works in Oklahoma or works in L.A. or Manhattan, that it's all the same? It isn't. Blessedly, it's different. Our number is 800-923-9385. Here's Anna in St. Clair Shores on the Patriot. Hey, Anna.
What they're teaching is all wrong, and they should know that anyone having sex with a minor can go to prison. They're committing a crime.
You know, I didn't think about that way, Anna, but, you're absolutely right. What if both of them are kids? What happens then? Appreciate the call. 800-923-9385. Had a text here from something. It's the job of the parents to counter bad information taught in school. What? Since when do the parents have to counter lousy information that the kids are getting at school? Seems to me you should be somewhat instrumental in trying to change the information they're getting at school. But that's just me. I'm a little simplistic when it comes to some of those things. Here's John in Sterling Heights on the Patriot. Hey, John.
Hello, it's Tom.
Oh, hey, Tom.
Yes, thanks, John. Another great show. I've got an opinion on tonight's topic, but before that, I just want to thank you and the listeners. Last night, there was a great turnout at the Southeast Michigan Tea Party meeting there at Dave & Buster's. Can't thank you folks enough. As far as tonight's topic, I think this is a form of child abuse. This is all an effort to break down family, traditional values, and Christian morals. And I think we just ought to add that idea to tonight's topic. This is a form of abuse of children.
I didn't think about it that way, but clearly if you take a young child and expose them to information that traumatizes them or causes them to be excluded or laughed at in class, yeah, that's a form of abuse for sure. And I know for a fact that there are certain ages at which you can opt out of these teachings, but then there comes an age, and I don't know what the age is, where you can't opt out anymore. Your kid has to go get that education. And that education is what somebody in Washington decides it needs to be. And I just, you may be able to figure out from listening to me for any length of time that I have no love lost for the Department of Education. I think it's a useless department. I think that the entire department should be completely disbanded and forgotten about. Turn all those buildings into nice bowling alleys or something. People in Washington need something to do besides drink. And, just don't have a Department of Education. Ever since they put the Department of Education into place during Richard Nixon's reign, education in this country has done nothing but go downhill. We used to be at the top of the heap. Now we're close to the bottom in math and sciences. They're too busy learning about co-gendered bathrooms and, well, you know the drill. Thanks for your call, Tom. Do appreciate it. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. Next up, Cheryl in Detroit on the Patriot. Hi, Cheryl.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight? This topic is like crazy, but at the same time I'm listening. And all I'm saying to myself is, this is why we have to unite as parents and as co-workers, as people of different colors, sexes, and say what we want our children being taught.
So
because if nobody's forcing the issue of what we want taught, as opposed to this is what's being taught, then we really lose our argument and our fight. But if we have a platform in the system, this is what we want our children taught, and we don't want the federal government individualizing federal students in local communities.
Well, where do we start?
Well, it starts with us uniting. Communities have to come together. And that's where it takes families. But Detroit is so hard hit, you might have 7 families left in some communities. Is that many?
Yeah, well, I realize that's a problem, Cheryl, and I thank you for the call. But maybe somebody will come up with a solution to that. On a small notice on a a little piece of paper, and you make a few copies of it and you pass it out, or what, I don't know. That's one of the things that they've got us over a barrel on, frankly, is the fact that they're pretty well organized in Washington, D.C. We're not. So and plus you got to run the risk of being branded a prude or whatever. I don't know. I'm certainly not a prude, but I object to a 12-year-old being taught that kind of thing, especially without the parents knowing it. Now, the school people who are responsible for it, not the superintendent, said, well, we sent a pamphlet home. Well, they never got it, number one. Number two, when they looked at the pamphlet that was produced, it had absolutely nothing to do with what was being taught in the course. Which, gee, surprise, surprise. Here's Donna in Oak Park on the Patriot. Hi, Donna.
Yeah, hi. I have a couple of questions. If I went to work and you showed me graphics of what you described, couldn't I sue for them showing me porn and sexual harassment?
I believe you could.
And if I'm offended, then why aren't these students being able to sue the school for saying, I'm offended and you're showing me porn?
I'm at a loss to answer that question. I do not know the answer to it.
Food for thought, huh?
Yes, it is.
How about this one? If you took a class on how to bake cakes, what do you do at the end of the class?
Eat the cake.
Bake a cake. If you took a class on how to fly an airplane, what would you do at the end of the class?
Fly a plane.
Fly an airplane. If you took a sex education class showing all these things, what do you do at the end of the class at 12 years old, 13 years old?
I don't even want to think about it.
Interesting, isn't it? I think there are legal ways around this that parents just have to put their foot down.
Well said, Donna. Thank you for great food for thought.
Have a great thought. I have one last comment for you on snowflakes, if I can. I've been dying to tell you this.
Quickly.
I think we should call them mushrooms because they're a fungus among us, and their cranial vaults have mush in them. And I think snowflakes are beautiful, and I think we should start calling them mushrooms.
Let's try it out and see if it catches on. How's that?
Okay, but we have to explain the fungus among us and mush in their brains.
Right. And don't forget what most of them are planted in.
Exactly. And what they grow in. That's another good point, John. Love talking to you. I've been a fan for years and years and years.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for the great call tonight. Have yourself a great night. 800-923-9385. That's 800-923-WDTK. I'm not going to be entertaining calls on the changing of snowflake to mushroom. I'm going to have to give that some thought. But she has a very good point. A very good point. Snowflakes are pretty. And no two are alike. Most of the snowflakes that I know, they're exactly alike. 800-923-9385 here on FM 101.5 and AM 1400, The Patriot. Dr. Richard Klein is a specially educated neuromuscular dentist with over 30 years' experience managing TMJ and sleep apnea disorders at the Michigan Head and Neck Institute. And it's really heartwarming for him to see the interest in something that he's been interested in for years, building in places where it should. Now, what I'm getting at there is the fact that the effects of sleep apnea, one of them, is extreme drowsiness during the day because you're not getting good sleep at night. You don't know you're waking up because you're waking up because your body is telling you, hey, you're not getting enough oxygen. So you cough and you kind of wake up, you come up out of your REM sleep, and then hopefully you get to go back into it. But when you keep interrupting it like that, that really healing sleep that you need doesn't happen. So you're drowsy all day. And when you're drowsy, what they're saying now is that drowsy driving is worse than drunk driving. The Department of National Transportation Safety Board has come out with that. And the reason is that once you do fall asleep, there's no coming back. In other words, you're asleep. Whereas if you're a drunk behind the wheel, at least you have some chance, maybe, of avoiding a terrible accident. But the people in Washington are getting interested in sleep apnea. He's been to Washington, Dr. Klein has, to testify many times, and they're coming up with rules and regulations to make the public transportation safer. And that's a good thing, and that's because of the work of people like Dr. Richard Klein. You can go to his website, which is tmjmichigan.com. That's tmjmichigan.com. Check out the symptoms of both TMJ and sleep apnea disorder. And if you've got some of those symptoms, then the information to contact Dr. Klein for an evaluation appointment is right there at tmjmichigan.com. For Dr. Richard Klein at the Michigan Head and Neck Institute, and please let him know John McCulloch sent you.
Now, on-time traffic and weather on the Patriot.
You'll find the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel north and southbound between Canada and the U.S. is closed due to road construction. Factor that into your travel plans. You'll find 75 southbound between Springwells and Northline is closed due to road construction. Traffic in Detour 94 westbound at 275 southbound is 75. You'll find 14-mile road east and westbound between Drake Road and Farmington Road is closed due to a broken water main. You should take another mile road instead. 696 eastbound between Woodward and 75 has road construction closing down the left lane. Traffic is stop and go from the lodge in this area. Expect about a 20-minute delay. You'll find on 94 westbound at Merriman Road an accident blocks the right shoulder, causing some delays in that area. And you'll find an accident blocking the right shoulder of Southfield Freeway southbound after Ford Road, causing some delays there as well. Your weather today: scattered showers with a high of 50 degrees. Tonight, chance of showers with a low of 38. Tomorrow, mostly sunny with a high of 55. Right now, it is partly cloudy and 50 degrees. I'm Leanna Ray for the Patriot, FM 101.5 and AM 1400.
The John McCulloch Show is brought to you in part by Dr. Richard Klein at the Michigan Head and Neck Institute.
FM 101.5, AM 1400, The Patriot. Here's Paul in Newport on The Patriot. Hi, Paul.
Good evening, sir. What discussion is not a problem, but a symptom of a much larger problem. You asked the question a few minutes back in the program, where do the geniuses, quote unquote, in Washington, D.C., get the idea that they know how life should be lived in all kinds of other places across the continent better than the local people? Well, back to the matter is this. The federal government has forgotten that the only reason it exists is because the states got together and ratified the Constitution and created it. And it is the child and the states are the parents. It is a pluribus unum and not the Latin scholars out there. The states were never relegated to departments, geographical departments or departmental of a monolithic federal system. So the fact of the matter is, they've forgotten that. And the child now rules over the parents. And the federal government is a very nasty, greedy, extremely intelligent, and oftentimes devious, spoiled child that can do good things, but is behaving more and more the last several years like the spoiled brat.
I agree.
I've never seen a situation where the child rules over the parents, and it's a healthy situation.
You're right there. Thank you, Paul, very much for the call. We're nearing the end of the program, and I've got to move on, but appreciate the call. Bob in Roseville, your comment, please.
Yeah, hey, I thought I had just heard earlier on one of the news programs that a 16-year-old boy was charged with 25 counts of molesting younger 12 and 13-year-olds, and he made a plea bargain agreement. I'd like to see his lawyer challenge that, and I wouldn't like it, but I could just see some lawyer challenging that and saying, well, hey, he's just doing what he learned in school. This is all so crazy. And then I wonder, too, what's going to happen when the first Muslim who believes in Sharia law and has their daughter or something like that being taught this. I can hear the lawsuits going around there, too.
Well, that's something I never thought of. And, geez, thanks for the call.
Mercy has prepared me for college and for life. I'm Maggie Ewald, a senior at Mercy High School in Farmington Hills. Mercy's rigorous curriculum, including AP Government, is equipping me with the tools to attend a prestigious university. Every student has a place here. Discover what it means to be a Mercy girl at our open house Sunday, October 29th from 1 to 3:30 p.m. Visit us online at mhsmi.org. We are Mercy.
MotorCityHelpWanted.com salutes the employee of the month, the one employee you can't live without. The others, let's just call them Dave.
Dave, why have you been shredding for hours?
The boss said we should cut costs, Mr. Employee of the Month.
How does this cut costs?
These are the expense reports for the whole year.
You shredded them all?
Thanks to me, our expenses this year are zero.
If you don't mind hiring Daves, go to the national job boards. They may be free, but trust us, they'll cost you. We make it easy to post a job, and it's local, so you won't get spammed by faraway job seekers. MotorCityHelpWanted.com. Local jobs that work.
MyPillow.com, promo code WDTK, and you're going to get 2 MyPillows for the price of 1. You've heard all about it. You just haven't done it yet. It's time. MyPillow.com, promo code WDTK, 2 MyPillows for the price of 1. What a deal. And you, too, can start sleeping the way nature intended.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
Promo code WDTK. Here's Maggie and Fraser on the Patriot. Hi, Maggie.
Hi, John. It's a good, informative show tonight. I was trying to think of the name most of the hour, and I finally thought of it. A few years ago, I heard about this Kevin Jennings, who is part of the Department of Education. So if you can Google it or go on the Internet and read up about him, I think he had a big influence with the Department of Education with what is going on now. So I just wanted to throw that out with the audience.
Okay, I will take a look at it tonight, as a matter of fact.
To read about him.
Okay. Thanks, Maggie.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Have yourself a great night. Here's Nancy in Huntington Woods on the Patriot. Nancy, only got about 35 seconds.
Okay. Hi, John. I'm a school social worker, well-seasoned for 30 years. I find it interesting that this is coming from Alabama. I kind of question it. I'd like to see it.
It's Oklahoma, Nancy.
Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Oklahoma. Okay. But also, we have to remember that our youth heard the President of the United States use the word P. And I don't use that word. I find it so revolting.
I understand. Many people do, Nancy, and I appreciate your call. I wish I had more time. I just don't. Thanks to Tiffany Little for handling the studio technician duties this evening. This program is produced by Steve Daly. Thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. Thank you for texting. And thank you for watching. And just plain thank you. I'm John McCulloch. Till we talk again tomorrow afternoon at 6, have as good a night as you can.
The John McCulloch Show is sponsored in part by Dr. Richard Klein of Michigan Head and Neck, Greg Chiropractic Life Center, Tech Public Adjusters, Cruise Hearing Aid Centers, and Online Trading Academy. The John McCulloch Show on the new FM 101.5 and AM 1400.
You can't handle the truth.
The Patriot.